Hi, I'm Rex Powers. I'm one of the coaches for the Wickenburg High School rifle team, and Mike Dalton and I have been doing this for a few years, and we have a lot of different kids reloading at the same time. So we came up with this method that we use, and there's a little bit of variations between the different cartridges that we load. Mainly this is how we do it. Let's take, for example, we shoot a lot of 308s. We're just going to do 10 of those today and see how that goes. Well, anyway, first thing you do, after they've been fired the first time, you want to take, we do this anyway, we neck size. But when you first get a cartridge, if you're shooting a semi-automatic or something similar to that, you might find that it's best to go ahead and use a full-length 3-size die. A lot of ours do. We actually do 3 different types. For some of the cartridges that we shoot, we do a full-length 3-size. For some, we do a bushing neck size die. For some of them, we do neck size, full-length, and then bushing. So the 3 that we use. Anyway, after they've been fired, you're going to find on some of them you're going to get a lot of black around the neck, carbon stuff. Pick them up, shake all the dirt out of them that you can get, and if you can't, inspect for cracks. Also, look for a bright shiny ring right here above the web of the cartridge case back down here. That's a case head separation just about to happen. So take all that brass that you've shot the same amount of time and throw it out. Get rid of it, because the rest of them are going to start separating pretty quick. It's real important that you keep track of how many times your brass has been used, and the first time you see one get case neck split or anything like that, get rid of it. Now, what you can do, you'll find a bunch of black around the neck. If you do that, take something like Scotch-Brite and just do this real quick, and just look for any kind of crack in the neck or anything like that. Any of them that need that, if you can't see them, like this one right here, I can see all around it and stuff. If they're bad, go ahead and clean them off. And as I said before, if you find a split neck, throw all of them out that have been reloaded at the same time. Speaking of that, what happens a lot of times, and this happens with the kids and some of the adults too, if you have a whole lot of brass that you're reloading, what'll happen is you load a bunch of brass, and let's say you have a box over here that's been fired. Fire that brass, you throw it in the top of the box, you take it back out, you reload that, you throw it back in the top. So you have a layer on top that's been shot, a whole lot of times, and the layer down below hasn't been shot but maybe once. If you don't do this and you don't keep your brass marked, what's going to happen is you're going to end up having to throw out a lot of good cases. Now, once we're at that point, what I normally do, just to make sure, and this is just a personal quirk of mine, I like to run them through the tumbler with the walnut shell for about 15-20 minutes. That's just to get rid of any kind of dirt that's on the outside of the shell. It's really hard to get some of that dirt off sometimes, so throw it in the tumbler, take them out, wipe them off, and you're ready to do this. Now,
this here is a chamfer. We use this on our bullet, so what you want to do is turn it on. On the left side there's an on switch. Take a couple in your hand. Simply fast like this, and then it's done.
There are lots of different ways to lube cases. There's spray lubes, the pads that you rub the stuff on. Over time though, we've gotten away from those, and what we do now is we use resizing wax. And there's several different ones unique here. I've just started using it to try it out. I have Imperial and Hornady. And there's quite a bit of difference in the price. This stuff right here is like $4.50, where the Hornady is like $11. And Imperial, they've been around forever. I don't know that there's a whole lot of difference in any of them. We're gonna need to use this today. And what I normally do is, the first case I do, now this is pretty hard stuff. It's not soft like this. Put a little around the neck, down the body, and this is on the first case. And then I do this. Now this will be a full length. I would do a little bit different if I was neck sizing. It's some cases, I guess, and all of them I've seen, you don't have to lube the neck. I always lube the neck a little bit anyway. And right there at the end, I have just a tiny, tiny amount on my finger. I just scrape it off on the inside of the neck. The ball, when it passes through, will squeeze it down through there, and it makes the rest of them easier to load. After that, I just touch my finger to it. Try not to get a whole lot on there, just enough to do it. If you don't get enough lube on there, you're going to wish you had over-lubed other than under-lubed. If you get one stuck in the die, you're going to really regret it, and it's a job to get them back out. I'm literally just touching my finger to this. That will be more than enough to lube all 10 of these cases here. Now, we have several different presses set up. We have some RCBS, big ones. We have the RCBS, this partner that we use for everything. We also have this one set up. This is an old Bonanza press, and I absolutely love this whole press. There's a couple of things that are good about it. One is that it has a universal shell holder, so I don't have to worry about switching out different shell holders as much. This right here will handle everything from the regular 308 up through the Magnums. if I want to do a smaller diameter case head like a 223, you take these two screws out, flip these two plates, reverse them. This cutout right here fits the smaller diameter case heads. Now, I do like this too because this thing, although they give you a screw to tighten it down, I've never tightened mine down. The reason for that is it allows the die and the case to kind of square each other up and allows them to kind of float. Now, as I put this in and pull this down, this clamps the shell, and now all you have to do, and it's real easy at that point. It just goes like that. When you set your die up, you know, make sure that your depriming rod here is long enough to kick this out, and make sure that this thing bottoms out like this one does. Now you have a thing also called cam over. You'll feel it stop, and then you'll feel it kind of go a little bit further, and it'll stop at that point again. That's when you know that your brass is fully three-sized. The other reason I like this is it actually is really fast. And this is missing a piece too. This is an old second-hand brass. It normally has a tube that comes down here and a little bottle that catches all your primers. Sometimes we do this, sometimes we don't. We'll take a tool and go in here and clean the primer pockets out. These right here are actually in really good shape, so I'm not going to do that. Now, I have two different tumblers set up. I have one full of walnut shell, and I have one with corn cob in it. And what I'll do is I'll put these through the walnut shell for about 30 minutes to 40 minutes, and it helps to get the lube off the cases, and it does get rid of a little bit more dirt. And then we put them in the corn cob, and it really probably doesn't affect the functioning of the shell at all, how it works. But what it does do is it makes them nice and shiny and makes them real pretty. We like that. The enamel looks good, you kind of have a little more pride in what you've done. When these come out of the tumbler, the last one, you need to remove any of the media that is stuck in the primer pocket in here, especially through the flash hole right here. Clean that all out and be ready to reload. All right, we use a Hornady lock and load bullet seating depth gauge where we actually run a bullet through a specially modified case into the lands. We use that to come up with our seating depth. So each rifle that we have, we run a lot of different rifles, sometimes in the same caliber. Wear and tear on the barrel and the normal erosion of the throat, sometimes we have to seat the bullets out further and shorter and what have you. And they're 300 rounds or so is when we do that. And you want to set that gauge up to where, you know, like 4 to 7 thousandths off the lands. And as the lands get eroded, you have to seat your bullets a little further and further out. But one of the things I want to caution you about is if you're switching between presses, you have to reset that and make sure that you're setting those correctly. Because if you have more than one press, you're going to find the seating depths are going to be different. And another little trick here is your shell holder here that fits RCBS and Lime and all these others. The tolerances between the companies and the tolerances from one single company like RCBS or Lyman or whatever, they vary quite a bit. So if you're switching presses, you're switching these in particular, you're going to have a difference in seating depth. You can actually run a bullet out into the lands where you don't want that. Be real careful that you only use one of these shell holders each time that you use it. Don't be switching these things. Make sure that you have one and you stick with it. We've switched from doing a 308 to we're now going to work with a 6.5 by 47, which is one of our real popular cartridges. We use it for the F open class where the 308 using the FTR class, which has to be a 308 or 223. Really like this cartridge. It seems to be very, very accurate. One of the things that it has going forward is it uses a small primer where the 308 uses a large primer. We kind of like that. Seems to help in the accuracy. We found that these little lead tools work really well. Personally, I like them better than using them on some of the presses. This is real inexpensive. They work for a long, long time before they break, and we've actually worn some of them out over the years. But the switch from a small to a large is pretty simple. You just push this thing forward and pull that little handle out. Take this off, which is the large primer. And you look on the bottom here and it says small primer, so you know. Use the same shell holders as a 308 and a bunch of other cards. And then you just stick this thing back together here, push it up like that, and you're good to go. This kind of swings off like this. Now when you load this up, put your primers in, I get a little nervous when there's more than about 10 primers in this tray. You can load a lot more, it'll hold a lot more, but do about 10. This is supposed to be a really safe one. If there was a primer went off, It's possible to ignite all these primers, and this one's got a couple of safety features that's supposed to keep that from happening. I only put about 10 in there at a time, because I understand that if it were to go off and you had a subsequent all of them going off, you could have a real problem. I'll set this aside for just a second. So a couple of these, like this one right here, has a little bit of media still left in it, so I'll go through here and poke all that out. One thing that's kind of bad about the media is once this shell is full, it doesn't do any more cleaning on the inside. The outside may be clean, but the inside doesn't get any polishing. So that's one of the neat things about the electronic ones. But we've had a lot of problems with the electronic ones. I don't really personally like using them a whole lot because everything's wet and hard to get everything dry and stuff. So those 10 are ready to go now. Their primer pockets are all clean. Get it where it's feeding a little bit. I'm going to do once. There we go. It fed one in. And I always like to visually, check and make sure there's a primer in there. Make sure it's facing the right way, because there are times that primer will flip over and you're facing the wrong direction. Look in it, make sure it's where it's supposed to be, facing up. Seat your primer. Make sure you point this away from you or anybody else. The other thing is, once you primed it, put them in face down. There's a reason for that later, I'll show you. But, and try to be real consistent about how much pressure that you seat these with. And when I take them off, a lot of times I'll take my finger, my thumb or whatever, and just run across the back. If there's a raised primer, it didn't get seated well, I can feel it. It only takes a split second to do it. If you feel one real high, then pull it out and run it back through. Make sure your primer's seated all the way down like it's supposed to be. All right, there's 10 of them. They're ready to go. The reason I set these like this is if you set them like this in the reloading tray, all of them up, you may end up with one without any powder in it. I'm not worried about double charging these too much, because if you put a charge in this, it's about 90% of the case capacity. So if you dump another powder charge in there, it's just going to run out the top. That's pretty obvious. But you will have one sometimes if you're not real careful about doing this. You'll end up with one with no powder in it. Now you may end up with a squib load, and you may be out of business for a while until you get that round taken out of there. We use different ones. Sometimes some of us will use this powder dispenser and scale combination here. This is by Hornady. RCBS makes a good one. Lyman makes a good one. I do like the Hornady pretty well. I like the RCBS probably a little better. However, all of them seem to have the same tendency. If you want 42.5 grains, it'll throw 42.5 like the first time, and then it throws 42.4, 42.4, 42.4. It'll do that to you, so be aware of that. It just seems like I get more accurate powder measurements when I use one set aside like this. These things are like $80, $75, something like that, and they work real well. And this one I've had forever. I don't know how old this powder scale is, but it's pretty old. It seems to work real well. This particular rifle uses 37.5 grains of Varget. This is Varget. That's the only thing we have on our table when we load. We never have another powder anywhere near this. As if you were to mix these powders, it could be disastrous. So only have one powder at a time on your table. And when you're finished, clear this thing out so the next guy coming along won't pour powder in it and mix the two powders together. Make sure you keep your area, kind of organized in that respect. We're going to turn this on. I'm going to take a few seconds here for it to zero out. I notice I did not put the pan on it yet. And it says, okay, now I'm going to zero it. Now, I know from past experience what this should weigh. So this is just kind of a rough form of calibration that I do. I have one bullet that I keep over there. I know exactly what it's supposed to be, and it came out there. It finally came 174.8, and that's what it should be every single time I do it. I'm not sure what this thing is set at, so it's going to take a minute to get it to 37.5. And I actually want it to be a little bit below 37.5 because I want to trickle up to get that amount of powder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run just a little bit of this off. and set this over here. So I have it available. Now we're ready to go. Okay, and right now we're at 37.2, which is pretty close. I didn't know which one we were going to be. It could have been for 308 or 223 or whatever. So I'm at 37.2 now. And just trickling up just a little bit at a time. I know they have the little tricklers you just turn with your fingers over here, but this right here works real well for me. All right. Now, one of the things I really like, this is by Sager and Company, and they make these and they're caliber specific, but I like these so much better than the plastic ones. There's some that are red plastic or whatever. What happens is as you're dumping the powder charge in like this, always tap it and make sure it's all the way down. Follow all the kernels going. Some of the plastic ones, the kernels here will stick on the side of it, static electricity, and you end up sitting there having to push them down, or if you forget to push them down, now you could be a half a grain short. So when you do this now, notice that this one sits upright. Okay? And let's see here. 37.3. Okay, 37.5. So we're accurate within 1/10 of a grain. Now, I went ahead and loaded all these. They all have 37.5 grains of Vargid in them. And I mentioned earlier the tool that we use to get our seating depth, and this thing is well worth the money. This is a Hornady overall link gauge, and it allows us to get our bullets set 4 to 7 thousandths off the lands. This is a Redding Type S seating die, competition die. You can probably get by with some other dies, and we have for years, but I really do like this one because you can set this thing to very precise tolerances. Along with this Hornady OAL gauge comes this thing right here, and they're caliber specific. They come with a little insert here, and you can change between, this is a 26 caliber or 6.5 millimeter, but you can get a 308 or 22 caliber, whatever. And this allows you to really be very, very precise, because this measures from the actual, basically the shoulder of the bullet where it'll make contact with the lands. We're going to check and see how accurate this is. Just set this up the other day. Now, each rifle, as they wear, and different rifles, we run so many different rifles. Some will get shot a lot, some will get shot less. So about every 300 rounds, we do this cartridge overall link gauge, and we record all this stuff down. I don't know if you notice this or not. Back here in the back of this, I have a loading log. And what I try to do is I keep track of the loads that I do, and anytime the calibration changes on anything or the distance changes on anything, write this stuff down. And we have to, because we're running 16 different rifles, and it's really confusing, and it allows the kids to, well, I forgot how far to seat this. I forgot how many grains of powder I'm supposed to be loading. For example, on one rifle here not too long ago, I did 23 different loads. Considering different powders and different powder weights and all, I did 23 different loads to find the one that was most accurate for that rifle. And even then, I probably could have done twice as many and found something even more accurate. You just take, and what I like to do is hold this up like this in my fingers, put this in here, try to get it pointed straight up as I can. I'm going to seat this. Now, if you're using a regular die and not one of these competition dies, or if you have one that's like on an RCBS that doesn't allow this to float, then only seat it part way, and then pull this up, turn the case, and seat it the rest of the way. I don't know if it's as accurate, but I do know it gives your bullet a fair chance to get straightened up down the axis of that cartridge. So I like to do that. Now, you take this gauge here, turn this on, and get that like that. You run this in here, and remember it's going to measure from where it actually touches the land, or where it would be touching the lands. Right now, I'm about 1/1000th of an inch from where it should be. And I'm not going to worry about that 1/1000th of an inch. And what I will do is I will run like the first 4 or 5 to see if there's any variation in that. Okay, there we go. That is 1/1000th off of what I have written up here. So that's well within the parameters of what we need to get. So between the first one and the last one of these are all exactly off from the original setting by 1/1000th of an inch. So now, before I put these away, I'm going to record up in this reloading log what I did, so I have a record of it. And this is going to go to one of the kids who now owes me a soda for doing this reloading for him.